Jim Antal, you have got the sense of urgency of a prophet.
Yes.
You're making connections between biblical faith and earth care that a lot of Christians, even at this late hour, still don't see. But you aren't giving up hope. You are president of the Massachusetts Conference of the United Church of Christ. To many others, you are also a voice of sanity and passion around climate change, environment justice, and healing. You've been to jail for protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. You've helped shape UCC resolutions on creation care. You urge your ministers to take risks in the pulpit and preach uncomfortable or even risky pack your bags sermons. He's nodding about the wounded environment. You are asking churches to reclaim ambitious moral leadership around the global ecological crisis. All this to say, you believe the church is in a John 18:37 moment, the passage where Jesus declares, "For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth." Let's hope there's still time to catch up to your mission and vision, which you insist is the church's vision too. The Coffin Award honors the life and ministry of William Sloane Coffin, former Yale chaplain and monumental 20th century religious leader. The annual Coffin Award goes to someone who shares Coffin's prophetic witness, who is devoted to the dignity and worth of all persons, and who has contributed notably to the work of peace and reconciliation. We are proud to honor you with this year's William Sloane Coffin Award, Jim Antal.
So thanks to Dean Sterling and the Div School alumni for this, and thanks for that wonderful introduction, my goodness. I was so fortunate to connect with both William Sloane Coffin and Henry Nouwen when I arrived at YDS in 1972. These two very different men became my mentors, shaping not only my 5 years at Yale, but all the vocational decisions of my life. Henry often reminded me that our job is to obey God's call, and the root of the word obey is to listen. Henry was fond of saying that we should always be all ear for God. Bill's words were similar. Our first allegiance is to God. God is the one who calls, God shapes vocation. Now that may all seem obvious, but when one is called to a position of institutional leadership, all too often the allegiance shifts from God to the institution one is leading. In like fashion, when asked, "What is your calling?" leaders of churches, denominations, and seminaries, and I think this applies to all leadership, often reply that they are called to lead this or that institution. In contrast, Bill's life and witness taught me that faithful leadership requires that you persist in having what he called a lover's quarrel with the institution you're leading, that the leader must also be a critic. At both Yale and Riverside, Bill modeled this position. What I took from my mentors is that by fixing our allegiance on God, we will serve new and unimagined possibilities for the institutions we lead. For example, in August 2012, when Bill McKibben launched the movement to divest from fossil fuel companies, no one imagined that 5 short years later, investments worth $7 trillion would be divested of their fossil fuel holdings. What does allegiance to God require of us as we live on the hinge of history, when creation itself is in the balance? I hope and trust that God will provide each one of us with the courage we need to hear God's call and take action. Thank you for this great honor. Living as we are at a time when the church is in trouble and creation itself is under siege. Humanity has never been in such desperate need for visionary, faithful leadership, prophetic imagination, and gospel hope. Not a shriveled hope, focused only on my congregation or on my family, but a robust hope that insists on the common good and measures that success by how our efforts lift up the least of these among us. All of you remember John Winthrop's words, "We shall be as a city on a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." 20 months ago, I quoted these words at the national gathering of the United Church of Christ. And after deliberation and prayer, we became the first national body and the first denomination to vote to divest from fossil fuel companies.